Azure core components. So in order to build your infrastructure in Microsoft Azure, you should know what are the very basic components in Microsoft Azure. So we need to know what is tenant, what is subscription, what is management group. So first, let's say tenant. So tenant is a dedicated instance of Microsoft Active Directory that is automatically created when you sign up for a Microsoft Azure or Office 365 or any other Microsoft cloud services. Okay, it serves as a boundary for an organization to identify and access management. So in order to explain it in a very simple words, for example, consider you are going to buy a house in a big housing complex or in a society, right? So what you will, for example, this is you. So now what you will do, you will go to the real estate, right? Or the owner of that housing complex who is owning all those apartments. So when you go to him and he will tell that I need to buy a house in your housing complex. For example, this is a big complex where we have hundreds of homes. Okay. Now, what real estate after your initial procedure, negotiation, and everything, what it will do, what it will happen. So finally, he allocates or he will provide this particular house to you. Okay. So now this house is a representation, of your identity in this particular apartment complex. For example, let's say the house number is 100. So 100 is a representation of your identity in this housing complex, right? Similarly, consider this is the customer. Okay, Microsoft customer. He wanted to build some infrastructure in Azure. For example, this is consider this housing complex as a Microsoft Azure data center. Okay, so now you will go to the Microsoft. Here, the real estate agent will be Microsoft as a real estate company. Consider it is a Microsoft. So you will go to Microsoft and you will say, I wanted to use Microsoft Azure or I wanted to use Microsoft Office 365, etc. So I need to get a tenant for that. For example, let's say you will not say I need to get a tenant. You will say that in a simple word, I wanted to use a Microsoft Azure services. So Microsoft, what it will do, they will do after doing initial procedure, they will create a tenant for you in their data center and they will tell you, okay, this is the representation of your company. Go and deploy whatever you want inside this tenant. Similarly, in the housing complex, how they are allocating a home inside this complex apartment complex, right? Similarly, Microsoft in their data center, they will create a tenant for you and they will allow you to do all the things, whatever you wanted to do inside this tenant. So now I hope you got the concept of tenant. What is tenant? So now you got the tenant. Okay. Coming back to our old example, which is the housing example. Now, when you get the when you get your house, it comes with the house key, right? And you own the key. Okay, you as a owner own the key, and there will be a door for that house, right? So when you enter that, when you insert that key to that door, it will allow you to come inside. Otherwise, it will not allow, right? So this door will act as a entry point where it will do all the controls, access and identity management. Okay. If you have the key, if you are an authorized person, then you can unlock and you can come back. If you are not authorized, for example, somebody else is coming and knocking the door, and you will not, if you are not know them, you will not allow them inside, right? So that is the identity and access management comes with the door. Similarly, in Microsoft Azure, when you get a tenant, right, you will get something called Azure Active Directory. Now it is called as Entra ID. So Entra ID, it will do all the identity and access management for your tenant. Okay. So if you are part of this Entra ID or Active Directory, then only you can log into your tenant and you can create your virtual machines or Office 365 service, etc. If you are not a member of your Active Directory or Entra ID, if you are not part of your Entra ID, then you cannot be able to log in or you cannot be able to create your resources. That's where this statement comes. It serves as a trust boundary for an organization's identity and access management. I hope now everybody is clear what is tenant and what is subscription. Just hit the thumbs up if you are following this concept. Okay. So now let's go to subscription. Now we have tenant, right? So now see what is subscription. So subscription, it is a logical container that organizes and manages Azure resource. Okay. It acts as a boundary for building, resource management, and access control within Microsoft Azure. So now in order to explain this, I will take my whiteboard. Okay. Now what I told, you have the tenant now, right? Okay, so you have Azure Microsoft Entra ID. So this is basically it will do identity and access control, IAM. Okay, so now you have to deploy your virtual machines or your database or your Office 365 services, etc. Right? You cannot come directly and you cannot deploy it inside the tenant. Okay, you need something called subscription. Okay, you need to create something called subscription. So similarly, in order to explain in a simple word, for example, let's say you got your house, right? So inside your house, you'll have your hall, you'll have your kitchen, you'll have your washrooms, and you'll have your storerooms, etc. Right? So you'll have a segregation, like the kitchen should be here, and all the things related to kitchen or the cooking, everything should be here, and the hall we should have TV, etc. Right? So similarly, in Microsoft Azure, in order to deploy your workloads, first you need to segregate, like you need to have a subscription, you need to create subscription. Okay, so subscription, it is a logical container within your tenant to deploy your services. For example, let's say I wanted to deploy Citrix VDA in Azure. Some other guy from my organization, he will come and say, I wanted to deploy core banking. Some other guy will come and say that I wanted to deploy my Microsoft Office 365 related things. Some other will come and say that I wanted to deploy my domain controller, Active Directory, etc. Right? So you cannot deploy everything together in one place. That's where the subscription concept comes, and also the billing, mainly billing, because let's say this is a Citrix subscription. Let's say you don't have a subscription concept. Okay. Let's say this is a tenant and everybody comes and deploy, let's say everything inside. For example, this is my Citrix workload. This is my AD workload. This is my some other workload, etc. Now you will not have a track on the billing, right? Which is generating like the bill, like let's say if I deploy 100 VMs, I will get billed, let's say $100. But this guy, the core banking guy, he will deploy only 2 VMs, which is only generating $10. Similarly, the other guys, they are deploying some heavy workload, which is creating $1,000. So at the end of the day, the bill will come, let's say you're imagine, and the tenant level bill will come $2,000. Okay. Now you will have a confusion. Your account team will have a confusion that how to segregate this. Okay, I don't know which team is causing how. Although you can go to the resource level and you can check it, but that is not a feasible in a big organization, right? And also one is there is costing, sorry, the billing. It will not have a billing if you come and deploy as it is. And the second thing is the control, identity and access control. Like this guy can do anything from here, this guy can do anything do here, right? So in order to segregate and in order to avoid all those things, Microsoft did a design saying that once you have a tenant, you need to create a subscription, right? So Citrix guy will create a subscription here. Core banking will guy create a subscription here. Your Active Directory team will do a subscription here, and some other XYZ team they will do a subscription. So let's say 4 subscription we have. Okay. So now I'm deploying 100 VMs. On the subscription level, I can see the bill. Okay, it is generating $100. So the account team can just check the subscription and he can charge the Citrix team $100 per day. Okay, in the final bill. So the core banking guy, he is just, as I told you, just deploying 2 servers, which may be generating $10. So here the other team is let's say $15, and this is let's say $50 per month. So now your account team, those who are managing the cloud bill, they can easily see who is generating what are, like what are the bills, all the visibility they will have, and they can easily charge back. Okay, they can easily split the bill here, and they can target what workload consuming what are the cost coming from this subscription. All this visibility will be there. So in general, when you create a tenant, first thing we have to create a subscription. And once we have a subscription, inside this subscription, we can deploy our virtual machines. So this is the concept of subscription. Okay. Now coming into the third concept, which is management group. So Microsoft Management Group is a top level container in Azure that help you to organize and manage multiple subscription effectively. It is part of Azure governance structure, which allows you to apply policies, manage access, and set compliance requirements across multiple subscription in a hierarchy. So in order to understand this, let's again go back to our whiteboard and we'll take the example of subscription. Okay. So now, as I told you, you are having a tenant, then you are creating a subscription 1, subscription 2, and subscription 3. Now you are a Citrix team. You wanted to deploy your production workload in subscription 1. Okay. Now your security team is saying, your CISO team is saying, you cannot deploy your let's say you have two requirements. One, you have to deploy your production, and another one is you need to deploy your non-prod Citrix servers. Okay. So then you may have a SIT also. Okay. So you have three Citrix infrastructure. Your compliance team is saying that you cannot deploy Citrix, sorry, production, non-production, SIT together in one subscription. There should be a segregation. Your production should be deployed in a separate subscription, and non-prod should be in the separate subscription, and the SIT infra is in a separate subscription. Okay. Now, what is the procedure? You will create three subscription, right? So in the first one, you will put non-prod workload. Second one, you will put the first one is production, second one is non-prod, and third one is your SIT workload. Okay. Now, the team which is managing, right? For example, team A, and then we have team B. So we have a same team to manage production workload. However, to manage non-prod and to manage your SIT, you will have team B. It's a separate team within your Citrix, hierarchy. Okay. Now, ultimately, there will be a guy, or there will be a separate team who is managing everything. Okay. So they will have a top level access. Let's not get into that. Let's consider like this way. Now you have three subscription. So this is nothing but a multiple subscription you have. So you need to manage this all together at a top level. I will tell you why. Now consider if we wanted to manage everything together, there is something called management group. This is same like a OU structure in in Active Directory. Okay. So what you can do, you can create multiple management group. For example, let's say you create this is production management group and this is non-prod management group. Okay. Under production management group, you will put this subscription. Under non-prod, you will put these two subscription. Okay. Now you have a policy saying that you should not deploy any VMs in production outside of UAE. Okay. So what you can do, you can create a policy in the management group level saying that deny any action which is deploying VMs outside UAE. So the moment you apply this policy on the management group, right, whatever the subscription comes under management production management group, it will automatically deny if somebody is deploying a VM outside of UAE. For example, let's say you have two subscription, which is S5, for example, production subscription, right? So you can apply here in the management group level. So you don't need to go and deploy that policy individually in the subscription level. It is not required. All that is possible, but you have to control at the top level. So similarly, if you wanted to allow deployment of VMs in the other region in your non-prod infrastructure, then you don't apply any policy here. Okay. Now think about the scenario. For example, let's say you have a single management policy to manage all your subscription, then you cannot achieve this, right? Why? Because if you are creating a policy to deny everything, then all your subscription will get impacted. Now, what we have to do, we need to segregate between prod and non-prod, because sometimes in the non-production, I have to do so many testing. I have to deploy some VMs which is outside UAE, etc. Then I can gradually create a non-prod management group, and I can bring all the non-prod or asset in a single management group, and then I can manage it. Similarly, production management group also you can do this. So this is nothing but in a nutshell, management group is nothing but to manage the multiple subscription. Okay. So once again, I'm explaining that if you have three subscription, subscription one, subscription two, subscription three, and if you wanted to block public IP address in this subscription, also in this subscription, if you wanted to block public IP address, right? One way you have to create three policies for this one policy, for this one policy, and for this one policy. Instead of what you can do, create a management group, bring all the subscription under this management group, and apply policy here itself. So if tomorrow you are creating any new subscription which comes under production, automatically it will take this policy. So you need to define once again here. And also you can do all the identity and access management. Let's say if you wanted to add some groups, etc., to manage all the, for example, let's say I have a user XYZ. I need to give read access to all the subscription, right? So I can define the role here to that user. So I need no need to go individually to this subscription and define the role. So this is the benefit of using the subscription. So enterprise level, this is compulsory, and everybody should use the management group to manage the policies, governance, etc. Again, the last one is resource group. Resource group, again, it is a logical container in a Microsoft Azure subscription where you will deploy your VMs. Okay. So if you wanted to deploy any virtual machine or any network public IP address or a database, we have to create a resource group. It is a logical container, by the way. It doesn't have anything inside it. So the resource you create, right? For example, VM or database, which will eventually comes under the resource group. So this is the hierarchy. If you see, the top level management will group will come, then the subscription will come, then the resource group will come, and then the actual resource, either SQL or VM, etc. So if you apply a policy here, it will inherit to all the remaining objects. Okay. Let's say if you apply some policy here in the VM level, then it will not go upwards. Okay. So please keep it in mind. If you apply, you can apply on the resource group level also, it will inherit all the objects here. So, however, if you apply on the resource group level, it will not apply on the subscription level. So always it will be a downwards. Okay. So this is how Microsoft Azure core component works: tenant, subscription, management group, and resource group.